All right, I think maybe we'll get started now. Welcome to today's panel discussion, how credentialing is preparing for the future of work. I'm going to get started today by introducing our topic. This information you see on the screen is from a report you can find on the WorkCred website. And in fact, one of our panelists today, Isabel, was one of the contributors to this report. As you can see from this information, it's been shown that those who earn certifications fare much better in the labor market. As someone who's been in the certification industry for many years, I think it's exciting to work in an industry where we can make such an impact on people's lives. And as we see from this WorkCred report, help employers address critical workforce shortages at the same time. So as I just mentioned, I've been in the assessment industry for about 20 years or so now, and I've worked on both the vendor side as well as the client side in roles ranging from test development and account and program management to business development, where I helped organizations streamline existing certification programs or launch brand new ones. So I'll be your moderator for today's session, and I'll be joined by a panel of experts who I'll introduce in just a moment. But first, I wanted to explain to you why we at Certiverse are interested in exploring this particular topic. Certiverse has a vision to democratize assessment, making it more equitable by removing the time and cost obstacles for test sponsors. And therefore, that'll make certifications less costly and more accessible to everyone. So naturally, then, this got us thinking about future workforce challenges and how creating more accessible certification programs can actually help address those challenges. So we reached out to some of our friends who also happen to be credentialing leaders to understand how they too are thinking about the future of work. We really hope that you will all find this very interesting and engaging, and we invite you to submit questions for our panelists. You can submit those via the group chat or direct message if you prefer to remain anonymous. We'll make sure to address those at the end of our session, and if we don't have time, we'll certainly follow up with additional information to address those questions. Until then, though, we will mute all participants to avoid background noise. So as I mentioned, we have a really great panel. So let's meet them. Let's start with Terry. We'll go left to right on the screen here. We'll start with Terry. Terry, would you like to introduce yourself to those listening in?
I would love to. It's a pleasure to join you all today. My name is Terry Augmann. I am the Director of Assessments at Project Lead the Way. We're a STEM curriculum company. We give a lot of tests. We give about 450,000 tests to high school students every year. And we also give a lot of tests to younger students, but I primarily work with the high school students. Before joining PLTW, I worked for Prometric for more years than I'm going to admit, and then ACT. So when I was with ACT, I was in the Workforce Development Division. So I had a real flavor of what can happen in the workforce and how important credentials are as people move out. And haven't lost my love for testing. And so I'm glad to join you today.
Thanks, Terry. And Jaron Schmidt, would you like to introduce yourself?
Be happy to. My name is Jaron Schmidt, and I am the Chief Experience Officer at Credentialing, which is just an overly fancy way of saying I work on anything that our customers touch, whether that's our design, our development, resources, or our product management functions. I've been with Credentialing for close to 4 years. Prior to joining Credentialing, I was with Pearson for about 18 years, where I had the pleasure of incubating a business that actually competed with Credentialing. And just to give some context, Credentialing is the world's largest network of verified credentials. In other words, we work with over 2,000 different organizations to document any sort of learning outcome that an employer would care about. We like to think of it in terms of helping individuals connect to opportunities based on what they know and can do. And so we have some of the world's most recognized brands that are leveraging our technology to document learning outcomes, award them to an individual, and then make sure that individual can promote those in a variety of different places without sacrificing context or verification.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's definitely related to today's conversation. We also have Dr. Isabel Cardenas Navia from WorkCred. Would you like to introduce yourself as well?
Hi, yes, delighted to be here. I'm Isabel Cardenas-Navia. I'm the Senior Director for Research at WorkCred. And WorkCred is a nonprofit which is affiliated with the American National Standards Institute. And our goal is to seek a more integrated and effective credentialing system. And we do that by connecting stakeholders to the system. And we do consulting and research, which is primarily what I do. And the focus really is on understanding quality and value of credentials when we're talking about those things.
Great. And Aaron.
Get myself off mute there. Thanks, Abby. Aaron Augmann. I lead the US Education to Workforce team at AWS, Amazon Web Services. And in that role, my team is responsible to help our customers to qualify and to find and then qualify and prepare early career talent to hire, and really addressing the challenge of this whole future of work topic. The challenge is we just can't find enough people that are technically qualified and ready for jobs. We're constantly recycling and upskilling and reskilling the people that are there, but we need a whole new generation of tech ready, cloud ready talent. And my team at AWS is focused on helping our customers to do that. It's great to be with you guys.
Great. We're happy you're here. So we'll start with some questions about our panelists and what they're doing within their own organizations. And then later we're going to shift to some general questions about the role of credentials as it relates to the future of work. So I think we'll start off, we're going to throw this one over to Jaren to start. You're a perfect example of someone who's working in an area that their college education didn't necessarily prepare them for. I'm one of those as well. And whose job today didn't even exist back when you were in school. You graduated with an economics degree, and here you are in the assessment industry or badging. You've given interviews to publications like Forbes, and you've presented at dozens of industry conferences, and you're considered an expert in the area of digital badging. So how did you personally go about positioning yourself as a badging expert when the whole field didn't even really exist a decade ago?
Well, I think this is awesome because it kind of touches on something that I ask anyone that's in the credentialing or assessment space, which is, how did you end up here? Because very rarely is someone like, from 4 or 5 years old, I want to be all about psychometrically sound assessments. Show me the way to get there, right? But no, it's I don't have a great story on that one. I would say expert is a pretty big exaggeration, but I would also say that whenever you start getting designated as a subject matter expert, it's going to be by way of a bunch of other people that help get you there. And so I was lucky enough to be within the high stakes testing industry for quite some time. And one of the things that I think always rubbed me the wrong way, or maybe left me a little bit discontent, was that the assessment was always meant to be a means to the end, but it felt like there wasn't as much time or energy being spent on that last mile of, once you have an assessment, how do we make sure that it takes care of what it set out to do in the first place, which in my opinion is to improve your life or career. And so for me, it's I kind of have a little bit of a marketing background, and I like that because I would like to say that, like, everything that I've been doing leading up to this idea of being in the space of digital credentials or badging has been around helping individuals market themselves. How do they tell their professional story online? And it just so happens that badging is one means by which we can start to send new signals about ourselves, what we know and what we can do, and really help, I guess, pursue what it is that we're looking for out of our career. So I didn't come here with that intent in terms of being a badging expert. I got it by a lot of really, really smart people around me helping me along the way, and ultimately focusing on helping people tell their professional story online and looking at tools or technologies that emerged that could maybe change the way that that was being done versus what we have right now, which is the traditional resume that focuses on your experience or your academic institution.
Yeah, that's really interesting. That's a good point. I hadn't thought about it that way before. Our next question, I want to go over to Isabel. As a woman in STEM, you have a firsthand understanding of the barriers that keep other women from entering STEM careers. So how does the movement toward skills-based hiring help change those barriers for women seeking careers in STEM fields?
So I think the movement towards skills-based hiring has a lot of advantages, both for employers and for individuals. And I think this applies very much to STEM careers, but also to other types of careers. And I would say that, one of the reasons that skills-based hiring lowers these barriers is because it allows individuals to capture skills that they have gained both within the formal education system and outside of the formal education system. And we know different individuals have different ways that they shine and that they learn and that they develop skills. And so it's really important to be able to capture, the broad skill sets of individuals. And I think that in STEM, one of what we know that women and other minorities are underrepresented in terms of earning STEM degrees. And so we have to think of other ways for individuals to be able to enter STEM careers and STEM fields. And so skill-based hiring can be one of those approaches. And I think that it's also, when we think about, as Jaren was saying, the life career pathway of an individual, skills-based hiring also allows you to take your skills and transfer them as you go through different phases of your career, make different decisions about what the next opportunity is. You can take those skills with you and have them recognized by employers in different contexts. And so I think, that's a really important piece when we think about lowering barriers for people entering STEM or who are moving on from STEM to other career pathways. Having that ability to have transferable skills is a really important piece, both for that individual and for the employers who are seeking these employees.
Well, and that's a good transition then to Erin, who, talking about seeking a lot of new employees. We all know that Amazon Web Services is one of the leading providers of cloud services in the world. So how does AWS go about finding, qualifying and hiring all of the technical cloud talent that you need to support the growth? And how do you help your customers to do the same thing in such a competitive hiring environment?
Well, to say the least, it is very challenging. And I'll just give some context that between Amazon, our retail.com division, and Amazon Web Services, our cloud services division, we have over 1.4 million employees. And the company's size is one of the largest privately, well, I should say it's a public company, but private company that focuses on, tech, at this level that has this many employees. And so it's a really challenging environment for us. Then add on top of that, the fact that we have over 1 million customers around the world that are utilizing cloud services and moving their IT infrastructure to the cloud. Amazon is the leading provider of cloud services across the globe. And the number one challenge for our customers is their ability to find qualified talent to support and maximize the use of these technologies. So qualifying and hiring talent is our number one business challenge. And then everything else falls behind that from a standpoint of company priority. So we spend a lot of time and resource figuring this out. For example, we are actively involved globally in enabling the K-12 and higher education systems in every country with access to free educational resources on cloud. We provide courseware, instructional support and tools, a full online lab learning environment for real-world hands-on training. We provide professional development support for instructors and free certification for instructors, because we have to invest in the future of technical cloud talent. We're actively promoting STEM and STEM education in partnership with great organizations like code.org. We work to provide scholarships and encourage students to pursue STEM careers. We're out in schools trying to support them with mentorship and access to our employees so that other individuals that are in school have a chance to see and hear what are the jobs, what are the tech opportunities out there, and what are the future roles that are coming, and even to be able to see themselves in those roles early on in their educational experience. And we're actively trying to find ways to reach out to a more diverse audience, students that are in rural communities and students that are representative of different minorities and students of color. our goal is to be as diverse and inclusive as possible in order to build a funnel of potential qualified candidates for roles at AWS and with our customers. And it's a very difficult challenge. Today, the skills gap for AWS is in the hundreds of thousands of open positions that remain unfilled. Our number one business blocker is our inability to find individuals with the talent and the skills required to use our tools.
Wow. So you talked about, Aaron talked about getting in K-12, starting really young and getting that curriculum in schools. Terry, Project Lead the Way is focused on bringing that real world learning to pre-K through grade 12 classrooms. And you receive support from corporations to help fund those initiatives like Lockheed Martin, AWS. Those are just a couple of recent examples. So why are these companies, I mean, Aaron already touched on it a little bit, but why are these companies so interested in what you're doing at, for instance, at a high school level?
Well, for sure, it starts with employers need skilled people, right? And we started over 25 years ago with in upstate New York with some engineers that said, we can't find people that are even ready to go into engineering education, much less an engineering career. We need to do more to prepare them for that. And so PLTW started a project-based learning approach to STEM topics before we even called it STEM. And I think we did it because employers said there's got to be a better way. We've got to be able to help. We've got to be able to fill this gap. And oh my gosh, Aaron, we never even heard about numbers like that with skill gaps before. But I think, Isabel, you mentioned skill-based hiring. So we kind of take skill-based hiring down to skill-based learning. And what do we do to help kids? We do believe you can learn these skills, not just the technical and subject matter skills, but I think some people call them soft skills. We call them transportable skills. So creativity and critical thinking and problem solving. And these are really important things that are really enhanced by project-based learning. So we combine the project-based learning with the STEM curriculum that's a really robust curriculum. And we think this gives kids across the board an opportunity to figure out what it is that an employer is going to need. What do I need? Jaren, you said the last mile. What do I need to go that last mile? What is it the employers are going to need from me other than just the technical skill? I don't mean to say just, like that's not important, but other than the technical skills that I have to conquer. And so that's what project-based learning does. That's what PLTW does. And employers fund it because they see that it works. We get a lot of money from, most of our funding comes from employers, and frequently in the communities where they're working and where they need to build the workforce right there, right now. And we started in high school and now we've moved down to pre-K. So we have STEM curriculum starting in pre-K, working all the way up through high school. And it's to respond to how do people go that last mile? What skills do they need? And how do we help them get them? Because we think they're trainable.
Yeah, thanks for that. So as you can see, I mean, those were direct questions to our panelists. We'll move more into a discussion portion of today's session. So as you can see, our panelists represent an interesting, really interesting cross-section of the overall industry, bring some really valuable insight. So we'll change things up a bit and ask some general questions now about the future of work. Our panelists can share their perspectives, and hopefully our audience, you guys can find some nuggets of wisdom that you can apply to your own organizations. So this question is for those of you on the panel who have created a new credential or worked with clients to do so. What sort of thought process goes on in terms of determining what type of credential to create? For instance, what considerations factor into the decision of what kind of format it should take, whether it's a certification, a certificate, an assessment, a micro-credential, or what have you. And do you think that organizations sometimes lean toward, let's say, a micro-credential versus a full certification as a way to get around the challenges of time and costs? because it's faster and less expensive to bring to market, for example. Isabel, do you maybe want to start in on that?
Yes, happy to jump in on this one. So WorkCred works with a lot of folks to focus and help them select what the right type of credential is. And one of the things we start with is we have a graphic on our website that will sort of describe the different types of credentials and how and these are certificates, certifications, different types of certificates, micro credentials, degrees. What is their purpose and how are they different? And so we go through that with our clients. So, what is the purpose for this credential? What are you trying to achieve for the individual, for your organization? What is your timeline in terms of launching? We know some types of credentials have a lot more process to develop than other types of credentials. What is, also what is the capacity of the credentialing organization? A certification requires much more infrastructure to develop and maintain than a certificate. And so, there's a number of questions that are very specific to an occupation, to the type of the goal you're trying to achieve. And so we go through these with clients, and we, offer them, talk to them about the different options, and then what we call sort of degrees of rigor, even within an option. So, there are many types of assessment, you all know better than I probably, but they have different levels of rigor in terms of development and how they are offered. And so all of those have to do with the goals and the capacity and other parts of the organization. And then the last thing I'll add, when we're thinking about sort of micro credentials, which we've been talking to the certification bodies we work with, and they are starting to develop more or think more about micro credentials, is really, thinking about how are you planning to use them in terms of, getting them, supporting your existing credentials, or, adding value to your current credentials. And this became such a topic, we've actually developed a series of case studies that we'll start launching in February, where we've worked with certification bodies to talk to them about what is the process of developing their credential and what decisions and key partners did they bring together to develop those credentials. So again, something we're very interested in and working on.
And Jaren, you probably have some good input into this as well. Organizations that are trying to figure out, do they do a micro credential or a full certification, that type of thing?
For sure. I mean, whenever I talk about this, I like to start from the standpoint of, when we say credential, what do we mean? And our definition of that in my circle is it's a third-party claim about someone. And so if you think of it from that perspective, when someone's asking, what should we start with our credentials and how should we do it? There could be plenty of scenarios under which, a 2-hour self-paced course without identity verification is just as strong of a signal as having that robust high stakes assessment that requires a prerequisite of 3 years of experience to earn. And so the thing that we really try to do is take a step back and look from the mindset of, what do the employers, those that are offering the opportunity, what do they care about? So it wasn't, I would say 2-3 years ago, taking a self-paced course on blockchain because of the hype around that technology, like that was actually a signal that employers cared about, and it didn't require an assessment, nor do I think you could have had a very solid assessment on it, because the technology was evolving so quickly that you wouldn't have gotten to that right level of rigor. And so I would say, whenever we're coaching our customers, it's keep an open mind on this one and start with the end in mind. I know, having worked with a lot of large certification programs, their annual planning, they would be like, well, we delivered this many assessments last year, so we should probably try and do 5% more than that, without even looking into like the labor market demand that says, no, actually you should be doubling your volumes if you're going to meet what employers are looking for. And so my coaching is keep an open mind about the credential. We have some credentials that are experiences. They are unstructured and there's no validation, but the fact that you participated in several hackathons or that you had an internship over the summer can still send a signal, especially if there's a strong brand behind it. So keep an open mind and start with the end in mind as well.
Well, starting with the end in mind, then I have a question, related note, question for Terry then. So why is assessment such a big part of the Project Lead the Way high school offering? Why not encourage students then to apply for certifications instead of offering an end of year assessment?
So let me address those separately. First, why would we not encourage students to look for certifications? We do encourage them to get certifications. Our curriculum is not specifically targeting a certification or a credential or a certificate, but a lot of our students, frequently, these are high flyer, high achiever students, and it's not unusual for them to be seeking a certification while they're still in high school. Also, there's a lot of on-ramps and off-ramps, and we wouldn't say that any certification that they get now is going to be their end-all and do-all. I think, Jaren, this is probably right at the heart of what you're working on. There's going to be a lot of them through your lifetime that you're going to be looking at and building the portfolio of how do you keep track of these across your lifetime. But so we don't say take an end of course and don't get a certification. We say if you're qualified for a certificate or a certification, and we will help you learn the subject matter material, get that credential. That will help you. Why is assessment important? We think assessment is really important because if you're going to teach it and put money into teaching it, you should measure to see if somebody learned it. We really do believe in assessment. We believe in a fair assessment. And we think that RDOC Corporation, for example, just gave us $12 million to put into student programs in their 24 communities. And that's like their initial investment is what they call it. They should know that students are not just taking a seat in the class, that they're actually coming out of it with more skills than they had when they went in. So we think assessment is important. The other thing that I think is really important, and Isabel, this goes to what you were talking about women in STEM. When we offer traditional STEM tests to students, frequently there's a real disequity among subgroups. Why aren't there more women in engineering? Because there aren't more women in engineering courses. And why aren't there? Because the boys do better in it. Well, something's wrong with that picture because girls are good at it. So why are they not scoring better? And so as we have moved our assessment around in the last 4 years to include more transportable skills, and Isabel, I think you called it a measure of a broader skill set. What we see in looking at the statistics is that is reducing the inequity between subgroups, whether you're talking male, female, or different ethnic groups. If you're really measuring the full range of skills, if you're teaching it, you should be measuring it. We believe we're teaching all of the kids to work in groups, to think creatively, to do these important things in their subject matter area. So we should be measuring it, which our assessment does. And we believe it will, and so far has shown that students are learning a lot. We want to give them credit for what they're covering, and our employers care. So that's why we do assessment.
That's perfect. So then what do you see as the future then? How will these learners aggregate all of this learning in order to present it to a potential employer? Jaren and Isabel, I think you both might have some good input on this one as well. Jaren, maybe you want to jump in.
I'll go first. Yeah. I mean, I have a little bit of a biased opinion on this one, so I'll just throw it out there is that like a lot of what Credential's been trying to do is create a network where credentials and therefore verified skills can be awarded to an individual and they can aggregate those across a bunch of other providers. So in other words, there are some other solutions in the market for digital credentials, but none of them take the mindset where we put the individual first and foremost so that they can aggregate across a variety of different learning experiences and outcomes. And ultimately, we see that propelling, when you say job seekers, our new solutions in talent management that we just released. And so what we have now is that we have people who are being recruited directly by recruiters through AI and their digital credentials. We have employers who are awarding credentials as part of a recognition program, who are also then looking at talent mobility and upward mobility in their own organization to identify this. And so I mean, ultimately, everything's going to be on the phone and the blockchain and who knows what else. I mean, metaverse, right? But to start with, Credential, I think, has done a great job of creating a profile that you can use to aggregate credentials from a variety of different providers and then leverage that to connect or send a signal to employers. Where it's going to go in the future, though, my guess is you're going to have your exhaustive data around learning on your phone, and you're going to elect who gets access to it and who doesn't. And thanks to things like distributed ledger technology and Web 3.0, you'll be able to actually trust that, and with the right level of disclosure or privacy, I would say.
Yeah. And Isabel, I think you have some good input into this as well.
Yeah, so I'll just follow up on that. I think, what Jaren is saying is exactly right, that it's going to be a technology-enabled solution. And so, I recently wrote about learning and employment records, or LERs, and they're essentially you can think of them as like a digital resume, except that it is secure, it's verifiable, it has validated skills, it's portable. And so, the individual has the ability to have all of their verified experiences and skills, on their phone, whatever platform it is you use, and be able to share. And it's enabled by distributed ledger technology, which is the same technology that blockchain is based on. And so the idea is that someone could select, which parts of their, digital resume they'd like to share for any particular job. And then the employers can trust it because the skills or the experiences are validated. And so it really offers benefits to both individuals and to employers. And if it's built on a good technology, there's the ability to innovate. And so, it will allow folks to figure out, what are those elements that will help me move forward and get ahead. And on the same side, for the credentialing organizations, for employers, allow them to innovate, to help solve the solutions that they're seeking by bringing together, so it'll hopefully, going back to WorkCred's mission, make it more efficient, make this divide between individuals, employers, credentialing organizations easier to navigate, and for it to become sort of a seamless system for all of these stakeholders.
Very interesting. So sometimes certifications and other credentials are seen as competing with degree programs. But the future of work movement is about recognizing that a 4-year degree isn't always practical or even desirable for some individuals, or for the employers who need to fill roles quickly. Yet oftentimes academia is approached about how to solve the problem. So how do credentialing organizations get a seat at the table, so to speak, to be part of that discussion and offer their programs as part of the solution? Isabel, do you have some thoughts on that?
Yes. So so this is something that we are very passionate about at WorkCred. I think that our executive director, Roy Swift, comes out of the certification world, and so he is very passionate about the value of certifications and the unique role they play when we think about sort of the whole universe of credentials. And so we estimate that about half of all credentials are non-degree credentials offered outside of the higher education system. And so we absolutely should have a seat at the table. It should not be, but unfortunately, much of the workforce conversation is focused around higher education. And so what I would say is that, one, WorkCred, part of what we do is we try to connect certification bodies to what is going on in the broader workforce community. And so we have a series of groups that meet quarterly where we talk about different issues and think about how certification bodies and other types and credentialing organizations can participate in these conversations. And I'll just say, when you think about federal funds that are going out now about upskilling and reskilling, certification bodies should be part of that conversation, and we should be informing the policies that are involved. that are being created right now. And WorkCred recently met with some Department of Commerce folks to make sure they're thinking about certifications as they are thinking about, efforts on workforce development and economic development, because that's really where commerce focuses on. And I think that, I would just say that there is a need for certification bodies which, are really work independently, but to come together on workforce issues in addition to the many other issues that they come together on. And so, we really feel like having bringing folks together to talk about the issues, and then hopefully, coordinate on informing our policymakers on how we can participate in those efforts that they're doing.
Great. And Aaron, do you have some input on this as well?
Definitely. This is a hot topic for us at AWS. And I'll just start by saying that, as an industry IT hiring company, we're trying to change the message we're sending to the marketplace as well. We often, as hiring companies, we talk out of both sides of our mouth. We say we want to be able to address the skills gap, but we require a 4-year degree, and we want to make sure that they're technically savvy, and we can't wait for them, but we still require that 4-year degree. And it really has become a conflict where we have HR departments who are using that as a filtering mechanism, and then we have the hiring departments who are desperate to find qualified talent and looking for qualified skills that are verifiable at the technology level. So what's really going on is this battle out in the industry right now between industry and education. And the way that we're trying to solve it at AWS is to engage directly with the higher education and public education system around the world. And what we're doing is we're approaching them. We're not waiting for them to approach us. We're not asking to be on advisory councils. We're not asking to give input on their future degree programs. We're telling them, we have hundreds of thousands of jobs with this skill set. We need you to embrace this curriculum and these technical skills and these soft skills, which students coming out of your system are currently deficient in. And we don't want to have to continue to retrain and prep these employees as we hire them, because you haven't done a good enough job to get them ready for what we need when we're ready to hire. So we view it as we have an obligation to partner with education to influence their programs and to really move the higher education system to meet our needs. You'll see Amazon, Microsoft, Cisco, Google, and others all trying to do this right now, because we're so concerned about the lack of qualified talent coming out of especially out of our US education system. So that's part one. And then part two is the need to engage our customers to participate with education in work-based learning. So it's great that we have these certifications. It's great that we have these credentials, but every company, including Amazon, wants to ensure that our future hires have some practical hands-on experience. And so we're encouraging our employers, our customers, to come to the table and participate in offering capstone projects, demonstration days, mock interviews, etc. And then in pushing them to offer internships and apprenticeships on a paid basis to bring talent in and have visibility into the pipeline. The best way for these employers to be able to differentiate between those who know and those who don't is to have a certification or credential and to see their actual hands-on work. So that's how we think the future is gonna change in education, is a stronger partnership, almost a demanding partnership from industry. We can no longer wait for the education system to catch up. We have to push it, we have to influence it, we have to demand attention, and we're getting it. They are listening and they're concerned. And that's especially true from the community college systems that we see in the US. They are super engaged with us in trying to figure this out.
Yeah. So Terry, if I go to you then, Aaron was talking about, the struggle of, let's say, a hiring manager or HR using a 4-year degree almost as a filter, but yet everyone's screaming that we need more labor, we need workers in these roles. So at the high school level, when you meet with school districts about the PLTW programs, what is their reaction if you talk about this? Do you think high schools have a bias toward a four-year degree program that you have to overcome, or do they see value in establishing some job training curriculums?
Bobby, I don't think it's an either or. And I may have a skewed view on it because the schools that we're talking to are schools that call us and say, what are you doing? How do we get engaged? And so I may not have, what do they call it, Isabel? Sampling bias? I may have sampling bias going on. But the schools that we're talking to, they want to hear what employers need. They're engaged and they want to figure out how they can provide, particularly within their community. I know community is hard, right? Because how big is your community? We are a big world. But when John Deere needs somebody in Ottumwa, Iowa, they want people in Ottumwa, Iowa that are skilled and ready to take those jobs. And when I say it's not an either or, a lot of people get jobs and go to college. I think most people get jobs and go to college. And if you can get a job that pays you well and you can afford to live, and wow, wouldn't it be wonderful if you could even afford to pay for your college as you're going? That's kind of everybody's goal. So our kids are not there because they're going into a four-year program. I mean, a lot of them are. I said, we have a lot of high flyer kids kind of at both ends of the spectrum. So they are going into four-year programs, but that doesn't mean they don't need a job. It doesn't mean they don't need a job that pays well. And it doesn't mean that they're not ready right now. Boy, if they can graduate from high school and go into a job that pays them, maybe they will take a few years to realize what they're good at, what they really like before they go into college. So I don't think it's either or, I think it's both. We don't want kids to close doors to either one of those while they're in high school, and God forbid, not while they're in middle school and elementary school. Keep those options open. Our curriculum is robust. Not every student will like it or be competent in it, but it isn't just the four-year kids that are needing this kind of skill set training. Yeah. And so we go to the schools where they're listening. We're in, I think, about 16,000 schools now across the country. And those are schools that have come to us. Well, okay, maybe partly because AWS and Lockheed have money to put into them, but it's not cheap to develop this type of program. And without it, it's fine that employers tell them, I want people with these skills, but they need to pony up to and be willing to put in those labs that kids get to get these skills now. And thankfully, we're working with a lot of good partners that will do that. And the schools are finding us to say, where would I go to do this?
Great. So there's been a lot of media talk about the Great Resignation, and a lot of companies are concerned about retaining employees. So have you talked to any employers who have wanted to offer credentialing opportunities to employees as a way to retain their valuable staff and provide them with additional career opportunities within the organization? Jaren and Aaron, I think you'd both be good at jumping in on this one. So Jaren, why don't I go to you first?
Sure. So it's interesting because I think the way that this question is worded is it's looking at, are they sponsoring industry certifications for their employees? And fun fact is that employers who want to issue their own credentials to their employees is our fastest growing segment at Credentialing. So we have just about all of the large consulting firms leverage us right now, where their people are their product and they need to upskill and reskill them on a regular basis, and they want to send that to the market. But then we also have like retailers like PVH and others that are directly in the retail space where you're a frontline worker and then you're a manager of frontline worker. And in order to retain their talent, they're actually developing credentialing programs so that someone still has a sense of mobility. I'm not even going to call it upward mobility, but just mobility in general, to keep them on staff. And so the Credentialing workforce product that we just announced is all about not only understanding external industry credentials that you have and being able to promote them, but its core purpose is when people are doing stuff that your managers or your staff care about, give them recognition. That's good for you and for them, right? Now they're going to promote that this organization helped me upskill or reskill. Like Aaron said, that's the new normal. With the way, that's a very grand brush that I just painted with there, because not everyone's a knowledge worker and so forth. But honestly, I mean, we have trades is becoming a big piece of what we do, and which is a space that really that upskill reskill wasn't as important. So I'm gonna just kind of double down on that one. That's becoming somewhat of a new normal. And so as an employer, to be partnering with academia, but also be taking an ownership over upskilling people and giving recognition and trust to promote that online, like it's fascinating to me how that's taking off.
Very interesting. And Aaron, how about your perspective from within AWS?
Well, I think this is a very unique thing that's happening globally, but it's a reflection of the changing workforce that's been affected both by the pandemic and also technology, from my perspective. And then you have a factor of this is you have the silver tsunami taking place, and they're just taking off a bit earlier. They just had enough of all of this working virtual and things like that. But we also have a large base inside of our company of employees who are looking to be more effective from an earning potential. We've got a lot of frontline retail fulfillment center employees who are looking to upskill themselves and find a path to a better, higher paying job. And so the way that Amazon, AWS are trying to address this is to support it, like Jaron was saying, provide education and credentialing pathways for them to get better jobs. We call it the Career Choice Program at AWS and Amazon, where we will pay for their college education. We will pay for them to get certified. And the best way to ensure both loyalty and longevity from our employees is to let them know, look, we've got your back. We know that this role that you're in right now is not your end game, and that we're willing to invest in you to be happy and stay with us for as long as possible. But I think that the real challenge is that as employers deal with this new work environment, we have to provide better benefits. And one of the best benefits we can provide to retain employees is to give them pathways to education in a cost-effective or free way as part of their overall benefits in working for the company.
That's
If
fantastic.
I could add to that one, Aaron,
Yep.
just one of the things that this subject comes up quite a bit for us within the digital credential realm, because I'll use one that many of my friends in the past have used, where employers start to get nervous. What if I train them and they leave our organization? And then the going joke in the industry is, what if you don't train them and they stick around? And so I think, Aaron, what you're touching on, though, is extremely important. Something like we're doing work together on, but like in our application, we ask people all the time, why did you get a credential in the first place? Was it because your employer made you do it? Is it because you're looking for a new job? Is it because it's a stepping stone onto your next learning environment? Or is it to apply it within your current role? And I was surprised, and I shouldn't have been, that over half of these individuals were looking to use it to just apply within their current role or to get a promotion with their current employer. That was over 50% of people were in that. Yeah. And I took a step back and recognized the fact that like we do a lot of drinking our own champagne here at Credly and encourage our people to get certified, get trained. It's kind of like yes, do the formality of asking HR and finance, but we're going to encourage you to continue to upskill. And I don't have the fears that they're doing that because they want to leave Credly. I have that, like, they really want to apply it within their current role. And I think this is a new shift that we're seeing from especially large employers that we haven't in the past. And I don't know if it's because of how quickly people are shifting careers now, or if it's because of the pandemic, but it certainly is alive and vibrant in terms of this is the new normal. We have to upskill and train our people because either they didn't get it in a 4-year degree or that wasn't sufficient to keep them, I guess, relevant within their current role at our organization. Spot on, Jaron. That's exactly what we're seeing.
Yeah, really interesting. This has really been a really great discussion. We're just about ready to move on to the Q&A section. I think we have right about 10 minutes left. Before we do that, I want to ask one last question, and I'd like each of our panelists to respond to this. So most of us in the credentialing industry already are firm believers in the importance of ongoing learning and continual professional development. So what advice would you have for our audience in terms of what they can personally do for themselves or within their organizations to help them become leaders in this movement versus being just a follower? We can start with maybe Isabel.
Sure. Yeah, so I think I would just say I know everyone has a lot on their plates, but to get involved in the conversations that are going on in the broader workforce community. And, you know, certainly I'll say we at WorkCred work with certification bodies to have those conversations, but there are, you know, other channels to do that as well. And I'll just say that's important, because even if you choose not to jump in right away, to influence those conversations, the learning and employment records, the conversations on student aid, and, you know, and what types of credentials are able to access, you know, aid. Those are conversations that are happening, and they're happening largely in the absence of any input from certification bodies. And so just to have input on them, to be aware of how they might affect your organizations, will really help you position your organizations as these, you know, things are, these technologies are being developed and the policies are occurring. So I would just really encourage you to get involved in the larger workforce conversations.
Yeah, pay attention. Jaren, how about you?
Honestly, I think this one for me is just recognizing that shift that I was just talking about. That's the thing that I care most about is, you know, it's reminding even the employees that I work with that like up and managing people isn't necessarily the only way to get satisfaction out of your career or career growth. Like we always talk about, are we interested in unlocking career growth for someone, or is it really about optimizing or improving their career? Because you don't have to necessarily equate moving up the corporate ladder or the ladder in order to be happy. And so I would just say with wherever you're at, a lot of you, I'm guessing, are delivering programs for upskilling and reskilling directly to employers. Keep it up. I think that that's going to become the new normal, and you're on the right side of an amazing trend and time for us.
Great. And Terry, how about you?
You know, so mine, I think, is a much more micro level and a much more personal level. And it's hard out there, right? I mean, work is hard, industry's hard, workforce development's hard. I'm a yoga teacher in my spare time, and I really believe you need to find a way to feed yourself. And for me, that is finding a star, finding somebody that is really doing it right and paying attention to how they're doing it. It's really easy for me because I go into schools with great students. What's a little harder for me is to find that star right here in my Pella community that's doing it right here every day, day in and day out. Is it a nursing home administrator? Is it the installer that's working on Pella fiber, putting Pella fiber in? But making sure that I'm connecting with people that are doing it right, that it feeds my soul. It helps me realize that what I'm doing is important. And my experience has been when people have fed into me like that, it's a win-win on both sides. So on a very micro level, find your stars locally and hitch your wagon to them.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll be leading them. Maybe they'll be leading you, but find them.
That's great advice. That's great advice. And Aaron.
Thanks, Abby. I'll just end with this thought that the future of work is completely in our own hands as owners and leaders of companies. We can continue to do what we've always done, and we will continue to get the same result. And it's only getting harder to get that result from a hiring perspective. What we're seeing is we have to engage. We have to invest in what's happening in the education system. We need to participate in work-based learning, enabling students to get trained by us in partnership with education. I think it's ironic, really, when you think back on education and how people were trained for the workplace hundreds of years ago. It was all about apprenticeship. It was all about internship. It was all about work-based learning. You decided what you wanted to do from hands-on experience. We are on the path back to that. Now, I'm not undervaluing or devaluing purposely the four-year degree. There are great educational value. There's great educational value in these degree programs, but industry is only going to embrace the future of work when we engage in the future of learning. We've got to be a part of it, and that's my number one recommendation for organizations to be successful in the future of work.
Wow, great advice.